What's going on, everybody? One of the things that I've always been a little uncomfortable with is showing my collection, sharing my collection with all of you. It feels sometimes kind of weird, not because I don't like showing it, not because I don't like my collection. Of course I like my cards. It just feels sometimes like when I'm just showing cards, it's like, it's kind of feels like, am I just showing off what I've got? It's different with pickups because I'm sharing in the excitement of the pickup and it's not all about what I've got. I don't know. It just feels weird to me to just say, hey, here's a bunch of my collection. And so historically, I haven't done a ton of just showing cards. And I want to start doing more of that. And, in some not too distant past videos, some of you have asked about different parts of my collection, and so I've shared it. And I've shown you, some of my autographs, some of my football cards, some of the things I don't talk about a ton. And it's been fun, and the feedback has been good. And that's the key, is the feedback has been good, and people seem to like seeing parts of my collection. And I'll admit, I like seeing parts of other people's collections. I like it when people show cards, so I don't know. It's just a thing I've got, I guess. So I decided to share a portion of my collection today. I wanted to go through a specific set. So, over the last 2 years, one of the biggest changes to my collection has been I've gotten into pre-war cards. And I think the main reason why, I don't know for sure, but I certainly love history. And I love the history of those cards. I also love old stuff, like going to museums and seeing old relics. There's something special about things that have remained after all these years. But another thing I love is I love learning about the players from back then. There are some names of some players I'm going to show you, and your initial reaction might go, "Who's that?" And I get that. But the way we keep the past alive is by sharing history and talking about history and reading about history and watching history. And since for a lot of these players, their careers happened, a lot of pre-war players, most of or all of their career happened before video. So we don't get to watch them play. So the only way that we can learn about them is to talk about them. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to share specifically the cards from my T206 collection. I really love the set. I love the history of the set. I love the background of the set. I love how the cards came in a little pack of cigarettes. I find that to be fascinating, that you'd get your pack of cigarettes and there'd be one card in there. And I don't know. And then the backs, a lot of us get intimidated by them because we're like, they're confusing. There's so many variations. I don't know this from that. It's really not that confusing, really. There were about, 12 to 15 different tobacco companies that put T206 cards into their packs of cigarettes. And on the back was the information of that tobacco manufacturer. So, for example, Piedmont is a very common back. So the prices are a little bit more affordable because those were more common. To put it in terms of today's day and age of if we were to think about beer, Piedmont would be like Budweiser. Okay, very common. Another one that was very common was Sweet Caporal. And Sweet Cap had, that would be maybe Coors or Coors Light or Miller Light, something like that. Again, very common, but not the only option, but one of the widest, most common options. And so those are the backs that you'll see the most because there are more of them. And then there are some that are rarer and rarer and rarer. So, one of the backs that I'm going to show is, I don't know. Let's just take a look, and I'll talk about it along the way. But just know that the backs for me are cool, but they're not the focus. But that's side of kind of the history of the backs. And I do have a variety of backs, but most of mine are the Piedmont and the Sweet Cap, because to me, the front of the card is really what I'm collecting, not the back. But that's just my preference. Let me show you my current and hopefully growing T206 card collection. Check it out.
All right, so I'll start off with my non-Hall of Famers. And first off, I have Kid Elberfeld. Now, why would I want a Kid Elberfeld card? Well, he was the second Yankee captain for a couple of years, and you can see this one in an SGC 2.5. He played 14 major league seasons as a shortstop and was pretty well known for his fiery temper, but was able to be the Yankee captain for a while. And so this was a card I definitely wanted. You can see it has a Piedmont back here. And as I flip it back over, the clarity of this picture is phenomenal. The depth of that red I absolutely love. Next up, I have a Molly Miller card. Now, Molly Miller, again, I picked this up. I shared this recently because my daughter's name is Molly Miller. This is one of 48 Southern Leaguers, which are minor leaguers in the T206 set. And they're a little bit harder to find, and so they are a little bit more expensive. You can see this is a Piedmont back as well. And as I mentioned recently in my pickups video, I bought this SGC2 for $80 actually at a local card show after looking for it for a couple of years. Next, another Yankee captain, Hal Chase, was the fourth Yankee captain. He was the Yankee captain for 3 years. He played for several teams and was a very good player. He won an NL batting title, and Babe Ruth and Walter Johnson both say that he is the best first baseman ever. Now, obviously, there are a lot of players that came later after the fact, but at that time, that is quite a compliment from two of the best to have ever played the game. He played for the Yankees, the White Sox, the Reds, and the New York Giants, and I love the centering and eye appeal on that copy of that one. Next up, I have a player who you may not recognize his name, but Harry Davis actually won 4 consecutive AL home run titles from 1904 to 1907. He also won 2 AL RBI titles from 1905 to 1906 and won 3 World Series titles with the Philadelphia A's. Now, this is a sweet Caporal back, and, it's really well centered back. I think it's a beautiful card. It has a little crease at the bottom. I sent this card to PSA myself, and when it came back at 2, I was a little disappointed. I thought, despite the crease, it had a chance at a better grade than that. Next is Owen Chief Wilson. Now you say, why Owen Chief Wilson? Well, for one, I think it's a beautiful card. I sent this to PSA myself as well and can't believe it got a 1.5. It's a gorgeous card, well-centered, great eye appeal. Now, he's not a Hall of Famer, but he does have one of the most unbeatable records in Major League Baseball history, which is 36 triples in a single season. In 1912, he had 36 triples. Very, very few people have had even 20 triples in a season over the last 25 years. Ginger Beaumont played for the Pirates, and he also played for Boston, the Braves, and the Doves. But he played and was a really good player. He won a batting title in 1902 in the National League for the Pirates. He has a career batting average of .311. Some people consider him a potential Hall of Famer, but he's probably most well known as being the first player to ever bat in a World Series game for the Pirates. Now, all of the remaining cards are of Hall of Famers. So first off, in an SGC2, I have a Clark Griffith. Now, Clark Griffith was a pitcher in the majors. He was also a manager in the majors and an owner in the majors. And he was the first Yankee captain. And I think this is an absolutely stunning copy of the card. He won the MLB ERA title in 1898. He had 237 career wins. You can see this is a Piedmont back. Again, as part of my Yankee Captain run, this was a card that I wanted. I just think it's a gorgeous card. The fact that he's a Hall of Famer is great as well. I've been trying to collect all of the Hall of Famers in the T206 set, which will take a while. Next, I've got my Arub Marquard. Now, this I picked up at the Strongsville show. It's in an SGC 3 holder. He was a really good pitcher. Now, he led the NL in wins in 1912. He led the NL in strikeouts in 1911. He threw a no-hitter. He pitched in the majors for 17 years. So to last that long, he obviously was quite good. And the fact that he's a Hall of Famer says that as well. He had over 200 career wins, and I think this has really striking eye appeal. I love the portrait T206 cards the most. Next up, we have Roger Bresnahan. Now, he played a variety of positions. He pitched for a while. He was an outfielder for a while. He was a catcher. Now, the thing about him that makes him important and a Hall of Famer are his contributions to the game. He actually is the person who developed the batting helmet. And you can see I have a polar bear back on this one. A little bit rarer than the Sweet Cap or the Piedmont. And he also invented and started the catcher shin guard. So he really started making safety equipment a priority in the majors. Next up, I've got Hugh Jennings, who was a shortstop, a first baseman, a manager, an extremely good player. He had a career batting average of .311. He hit .386 one season, and he hit .401 one season. And he won a couple of World Series titles. Now, he's kind of a character and was a well-known player at the time. He has multiple different versions of the T206 cards. And this is the one I have so far. Next, we have Chief Bender. Chief Bender was a pitcher in the majors and had a career ERA of 2.46. In 1911, he had 3 complete games in a World Series, and he's the first American League player to be elected to the Hall of Fame who is a Native American. There are only 2 Native Americans in the Hall of Fame. He is one of them, and Zach Wheat is the other. And again, I love the portrait cards. I think that green background is gorgeous and was thrilled to get that card. And then I've got Iron Man McGinnity. Now, this guy is exactly as his nickname says. He lasted forever. 5 times he led the NL in wins. He led the NL in ERA once. He had 246 career wins, a career ERA of 2.66. 7 times he won 20 or more games, and 2 times he won 30 or more games. And I just think the color, the depth of the color and the centering is always going to be my focus on these T206 cards. All right, next up, another Hall of Famer, Jake Beckley. Now, Jake Beckley had 2,930 career hits, and again, as a Hall of Famer, he batted over 313 different seasons. And his career batting average is .309. This one's also a Piedmont back. Again, I've got lots of Sweet Cap and Piedmont backs because those are the most common, and I'm more into the front of the card. But another Hall of Fame player there. Now I've got Bobby Wallace, who was a shortstop and a really good player as well. This is in a 3.5 from PSA. I think this is kind of a stunning looking card. I paid up a little bit for this one because I thought it was so beautiful. And you can see here on the back, it's got the PWCC sticker, if that means anything to you. He had 2,309 career hits. And again, to me, I mean, the action shots are cool, but the portraits like this are just absolutely gorgeous cards. Next up is another Hall of Famer. This is Elmer Flick. Elmer Flick won an AL batting title. He won an NL RBI title. Twice was an AL stolen base leader. and had a career batting average of .313. And this one is in a PSA 3. It's a little bit of an older label, but I think the centering is fantastic on it. And that's actually a little bit of a tougher one to find, especially in good condition. Next, we've got Johnny Evers. Now, Johnny Evers is a second baseman who won an NL MVP. When you have a guy like a middle infielder, sometimes they don't have the power numbers, but the things that they do for the team are important, which is, why he would win an MVP, but not have any crazy stats. Also helped lead his team to 3 different World Series titles. And I think the centering and the clarity on this card is fantastic. He's got 3 different T206 cards. That's the one I have at this point. Next up, we have Hugh Duffy. Now, Hugh Duffy, this is an interesting one. He batted .440 in 1894, which is arguably the record for the highest batting average in a single season. And recently, with some of the stats changing or being added, it's now the second highest. He won a Triple Crown in 1894 and twice was the home run leader. Next up, we've got Miller Huggins. Now, Miller Huggins was the Yankee manager in the late 19-teens to the late 1920s. He is the first person ever to be honored in Monument Park at Yankee Stadium, and he led the team to their first 6 AL pennants, as well as their first 3 World Series titles. He has 2 cards in the T206 set, and this portrait is certainly my favorite. Next up, I've got Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly was a left fielder with a career batting average of .317. He batted over 300 11 consecutive years. Now, this one is a sovereign back. This is the rarest, probably, of the 4 backs that I have represented. And Joe Kelly also was an NL stolen base leader. But, when you're batting over 300 11 straight years, that says a lot. Now, this card, again, the depth of the color and the centering is sort of the theme that I think you'll see in the cards that I pick up. Fred Clark, again, all of these are Hall of Famers here at this point, batted .312 for his career and had 2,672 career hits. In addition to that, he had over 1,600 career managerial wins. And you can see the depth of the red here, the well-centered. It's got a little tobacco stain on the back, which is probably the reason that it received the grade that it did instead of receiving a higher grade. But, a PSA 3.5 is still a fantastic grade for a card like this, especially from 115 years ago. Next up, I've got Frank Chance. Now, Frank Chance was the 5th Yankee captain. Yes, at the very end of his career, he played a season for the Yankees and was named the captain. He has 2 World Series titles. He is a 2-time NL stolen base leader, and he also led the NL in runs scored one year. He's kind of a character with a lot of stories surrounding him. And you can see here, this is the yellow background portrait. There's another one, too, that's like a pink. They might call it a red, but it's sort of a pink. And then he has some action shots. Again, a well-known player, which is why he has multiple different cards in the set. Next up, one of my favorites, which is the Wee Willie Keeler. He is the 2nd Yankee captain. He's the guy who had the hit streak that Joe DiMaggio broke. His hit streak was 44 consecutive games, and he had an at-bat per strikeout ratio that was unbelievable for his career. He had 63 at-bats per strikeout. His career batting average was 341, and he won 2 NL batting titles, including batting over 400 in one of those seasons. And last but certainly not least is my Christy Mathewson Dark Cap. He's got 3 cards in the T206 set. 373 career wins, career ERA of 2.13. He won 2 Triple Crowns. 4 times was the NL wins leader. 5 times was the NL ERA leader. 5 times the NL strikeout leader. He had 2 no-hitters. He's a first ballot inaugural Hall of Famer. He served in the military during World War I and was exposed to a chemical gas which actually contributed to his death at a really young age. So he did not live much longer after the end of his career because of that. That is my collection.
So let me ask you guys, what did you think of that? Was that cool? Was that fun? Is that something you want me to do more of? Do you want me to show my collection more often and parts of my collection more often? Now, I will say that over the last couple of years, I have directed a lot of my resources into my T206 collection because that's just kind of at the moment the thing that I'm most excited about. But I am collecting other things and do have other cards in my collection as well. I've got some Gaudies, I've got some cards from the 50s and 60s. You know, I've got some early Bowmans, 48s to 54 Bowmans. I've got football cards, I've got basketball cards. And, I don't have a massive collection, but I've got a fun collection and I have a fun time putting it together. So I hope you enjoyed that. But down below, let me know, what did you think of this? Was this something you want me to do again? Doing a video on my collection and kind of talking about the cards and the players and why I picked them up and why I like them? Or do you like it when I do more of my analysis type stuff or commentary stuff? Again, I appreciate everybody watching, and let me know what you think.